Hi, everybody. Glad you joined us for another playoff edition of Big Game Bound. Only 4 teams still have a chance to make the trip to Miami to play in Super Bowl 54. The 49ers, Packers, Titans, and Chiefs. First up on Sunday, the AFC Championship game. The Titans head to Kansas City. That's a 3:05 kickoff at Arrowhead Stadium. You can watch that game on CBS. Then the NFC Championship game. The Packers head to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. A 6:40 kickoff on Fox. Let's start with Ty Halleck. He played 7 seasons in the NFL for the Bears, the Jaguars, and the Lions. Joins us each week on Big Game Bound as our NFL analyst. When you were playing and your team was eliminated, Ty, were you watching these games, or was it just too difficult?
I think you watched them. I mean, look, I think everybody that plays in the National Football League certainly wants to get to the Super Bowl and win it. But if you get knocked out, having been in an AFC Championship game as an example, you want to see, are your guys going to go and win it all? And that's really the thing is being a player, you become a fan and friends of other buddies. You probably got a buddy or a coach or somebody that's on those other teams. So for myself, and I know for a lot of guys, I mean, at times I'm sure if you miss getting to the Super Bowl, there's guys that may say, I'm not watching it, I'm going to go out west and ski or go down south and bury my head in the sand or do something different. But for me, I've just always been a football fan. I don't care if it's from Pee Wee football all the way up to the NFL. You always want to watch these games. And quite frankly, we've had some awesome games.
Yeah, and we've had some unbelievable performances. Patrick Mahomes, that was the stuff of legends. What did you see from him? What impresses you most about him?
I think most of all, I mean, when you watch the TV broadcast is they're down 24. Now, look, the special teams obviously broke down and gave up a good chunk of that as well. But he's on the sidelines talking to his guys saying, hey, look, we got to get this done. And it's very obvious that he's respected. It's not fake. You know, you see a lot of scenarios where guys are talking, especially in the National Football League, and you say to yourself, that seems a little contrived, et cetera. With him, I think it's real, and I think the guys love and respect him because of what he can do with the football and how smart he is with the football. And that showed going down, throwing 5 touchdowns, doing 7 of those touchdowns, and just taking care of business when it would have been very easy for them to go, oh boy, this is just not our day. And they come back all the way 51 points after being down 24-0.
Well, down 24-0, and they came back like that. How much confidence does that give a team going forward, you know, if they fall behind in a big game?
Well, I think it gives them a lot of confidence. And I think Patrick Mahomes has earned that in this short order of his professional career. He continues to be creative. He can throw the ball on the run. He had 53 yards rushing to go along with his 321 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, look, the guy's creative. He figures it out. He knows how to do it from the NFL experience level where he's made. I mean, how many different guys can he throw to? Travis Kelce, he threw to 10 times. When you look at all the different receivers he has in Watkins, Hill, Williams, Hardman, and Bell. I mean, all these guys, it's unbelievable to me how he spreads it around as well. That's another way to engage your team. Travis Kelce gets 10 of them, but people know how good and how tough it is to defend him, but he also sprinkles that ball around to everybody else.
Yeah. More impressive performance, Mahomes or the 49ers defense this weekend?
I think the 49ers defense, again, not to discount anything what Patrick Mahomes did, it was amazing. But that 49ers defense has been steady all year long. A lot of first-rounders, a lot of defensive linemen, all 6 sacks by the defensive line. You know how that goes. They're fast, they're athletic, they get after it, and they shut down a Minnesota team that played very well the time before. I think for the Minnesota Vikings, the big issue they had is they didn't have that vertical threat. And not having that vertical threat downfield really hurt him because Kirk Cousins didn't throw for his average was less than 6 yards a throw. So I think for them that hurt them, but that defense is just very stout. I think they're very good.
More impressive performance, 49ers defense or Derrick Henry, who's just 3 straight games of 180 yards.
Well, I'll be like a good politician and keep shifting the focus. I'm going Derrick Henry on this. Look, the only NFL back in NFL history, Jack, to go 3 games in a row, 180 yards plus, 195 in this one. And look, this is the Baltimore Ravens defense who's very good. I would submit to you better than the New England Patriots who were good. And they saw what he did to them, and yet they weren't able to stop him. A lot of people talking about Ryan Tannehill on top of that when you really think about it, not being able to throw the ball. He doesn't need to throw the ball. I mean, when you have a guy that's running for 180 yards plus every game, that's a good way to keep people off the field. So very exciting going into Kansas City for the Tennessee Titans.
All right, so the one team we haven't talked about yet, Ty, was Green Bay. They went into San Francisco earlier this year, and they just got shellacked Now they get another crack at the 49ers. If you're Matt LaFleur, are you putting this game on the shoulders of Aaron Rodgers?
Yes, you have to, and it's exactly why he's there. It's what you have a top-tier quarterback for. And the reality of it is he needs to do what Patrick Mahomes is doing in Kansas City, spreading the ball around. Aaron Rodgers has to have help from Aaron Jones. Look, Devontae Adams, holy cow, what a game he had, 160 yards. And Graham at the end, you saw the controversial deal, but he was there to catch the ball, had a few catches himself. I think you have to look at Aaron Rodgers and his arm, his ability to create plays even with his feet when needed. I think this will be a much closer game than it was during the regular season, and I think Aaron Rodgers will be the reason for that.
Okay, so normally we do the top 5, but there's only 4 teams left. So instead of doing that, let's just make your predictions. Who do you like NFC Championship game?
In the NFC Championship game, I like San Francisco, and it goes back to the defense we just talked about. They're young, they're athletic, they're fast. They get after it. They're going to get after for sure. There's no question about San Francisco, in my mind, is absolutely the team to beat of all of them. When you look at the AFC side of it, I like the Kansas City Chiefs because they're at home. But look, there's something about this Tennessee team, and I think underappreciated across the league right now is how good the Tennessee defense is. Yes, they gave up a lot of yards against Baltimore, but they didn't give up the most important part, which is the red zone scoring points part, and that's the biggest thing that I think will help them at least be close. But it's hard to go against Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City at home.
All right, first up on Sunday is the AFC Championship game. The Titans at the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a 3:05 start from Arrowhead Stadium. Let's take you to Kansas City, where Rob Collins is back for yet another appearance on Big Game Bound. Rob, what was the mood in the stadium when the Texans jumped out to that 24-0 lead, and then how electric did it get in that second quarter?
Yeah, it was nuts. The emotions in the first half were unbelievably crazy. You know, when the Texans scored on that missed assignment, the vibe in the stadium was like, all right, we let one slip, but now let's go. But then you had the block punt. The Tyreek Hill muffin the punt, and then, man, fatalistic feelings started encompassing Arrowhead Stadium. Everyone was shell-shocked. No one could believe what was going on. Kind of like that boat ride, the original Willy Wonka. There was a sense of fear, disbelief, general confusion. No one knew when that thing was going to stop. But once it did, and knowing the Chiefs haven't been blown out all year long, there was a sense they could get a spark and get a score. They could get back with the offense of Patrick Mahomes and company, and that's exactly what happened, thankfully, for Chiefs Kingdom.
The Chiefs were the definition of a quick strike offense in that second quarter, and those touchdown drives were 2 plays, 3 plays, 3 plays, 7 plays. That was the second quarter alone. What was it like watching Mahomes when Mahomes' magic is on full display?
A disbelief. We were all in awe up in the press box looking at each other with kind of blank stares on our face, and we're like, yeah, that's Patrick Mahomes. And he told the guys on the bench, he said, hey, let's do something special. Mahomes flipped the switch. He went to superhero mood. They unleashed a whole bunch of Mahomes magic. As you said, 28 points, 10 minutes, erasing that deficit to lead at halftime. And after that happened, everyone in the stadium and us in the press box who were quietly cheering got the feeling that the Chiefs were in control, considering they got the ball coming out in the second half. Coach Reed kept the hammer down. The Chiefs scored 41 unanswered points. Unbelievable. Granted, Bill O'Brien had some questionable play calls and decisions in that time, but what Patrick Mahomes and company did, just mind-boggling. I went back and watched it 4 or 5 times. It's just amazing what they accomplished.
Yeah, and after that tough start, the Chiefs' defense was solid. Now they have to face Derrick Henry. The way he's playing and that Titans' offensive line is blocking, how do the Chiefs stop him? Can they stop him?
Yeah, I don't think they can stop him, but I don't think they need to. Derrick Henry's been motoring like a freight train full of nitro his last 3 games. Nearly 100 carries, man, nearly 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. Containing him will certainly be a chore for that defense, especially without Chris Jones. It's doubtful that he's going to play at this point. We'll find out. That'll probably be a game-time decision. Got that calf injury, can't push off, but that will be big for him. Luckily, the Chiefs have Mike Pennell and other guys who've been stepping up, doing very well, stopping the run all season long. But Derrick Henry, he was unbelievable. Last time against the Chiefs, we all saw what he did, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. But that's the last time the Chiefs lost. Remember that. That's the last time they've given up 100 yards on the ground. So I think Derrick Henry will probably get over 100 yards, maybe touchdown or 2, maybe even 3, but there's no way that Tennessee offense can keep up with the Chiefs offense. So I don't think you got to stop Derrick Henry completely, put the onus on Ryan Tannehill, and see what happens.
Rob, the Chiefs haven't been to the Super Bowl in 50 years, Super Bowl IV. What would it mean to Kansas City to get back there and win another one?
That'd mean everything. It would mean we had to stop saying they haven't been there in 50 years, first of all. Chiefs fans are certainly, salivating at the chance to get back to that Super Bowl. And we kind of felt the same mojo here when the Royals got close in 2014 and then won it all back in 2015. The Chiefs just one play away from the Super Bowl last year. And now they have the chance, back-to-back AFC Championship games. It's all right here in front of them. You think about what led up to this point. Miami beating the Patriots to allow the Chiefs to get the bye. Tennessee beating Baltimore, allowing the Chiefs to host the AFC Championship trophy. The Lamar Hunt Trophy is here. It is in town, and it could be finally back with its rightful place, with the rightful family. Chiefs franchise has been trying to eradicate those fatalistic feelings we talked about earlier and get to the Super Bowl. 5 decades, man. I believe this is the best team suited to do so, finally to get to the Super Bowl, and hopefully for Coach Reed to finally get a win.
For the Titans' perspective, we welcome back Corey Curtis from Nashville again. Corey, I think the Titans have everybody's attention now. Is there some magic here, or is this a team that picked just the right time to peak?
Well, Jack, I don't think you expect to be calling me again this week, as the Titans have kind of crashed this party when no one expected them to at 9-7. Is there some magic? Yeah, I think there is some magic. I mean, Derrick Henry's only rushed for like 1,250 yards in the last 8 weeks. I mean, that's a 2,500-yard season pace, and it's absolutely ridiculous. The team has rode that horse, but the miraculous thing is how much better their defense has been in the postseason as it was to the last about 6 weeks of the regular season. The defense started the year red hot, but then fell off. But they have been dynamic the last 2 weeks, shutting down Tom Brady, a perennial MVP candidate, and Lamar Jackson, this year's MVP, held each of those guys to 1 touchdown. I mean, that's what nobody's talking about. 2 for 7 in the red zone. So they found magic on both sides of the ball. And they're, you hear words like impose their will. They're imposing their will on teams on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, let's talk about that defense a little more. The Titans did the unthinkable last week, shut down that Baltimore offense and the MVP, and they made them look bad. What did they do, and can they do it again to Patrick Mahomes?
Well, it's funny you say shut them down. I think they went for like 550 yards, but it was all between the 20s. And there were a couple of big factors. Number one, they limited the space to which Lamar Jackson could operate laterally, and they hemmed him in a box most of the day, and they kept him from really getting free. But the big thing was defensively, when they got the lead, like I said, when they got the lead and you knew they had to be a pass-first team, that's when they got in trouble, because their outside weapons aren't that dynamic if you know they're going to throw the football. Lamar Jackson threw 59 passes, and if I told you before the game Lamar Jackson threw 59 passes, you would know exactly what that means. It means Baltimore lost badly, which is exactly what happened. But the Titans have been a solid run-defending team. But where they have been really great is short yardage and in the red zone. The Baltimore Ravens came into that game 8 for 8 on 4th and 1. They went 0 for 2 on that game in 4th and 1, and they were both huge plays in the football game. And then on top of that, if you go back to the week before in New England, the Titans defense has held the Patriots and the Ravens now to 2 for 7 in the red zone. All season long, the Titans were probably a bottom 5 team in red zone defense, but in the postseason, they have found the secret sauce for red zone defense, and they have got it done. It's where they have won both of these football games. Let me take you back to Saturday night. Lamar Jackson drops a beautiful ball into Hollywood Brown just before halftime, down to the 4-yard line. They've got a chance to score, make it 14-10, and get the ball to start the second half. Titans bow up, make a play on defense, hold them to 3. I mean, there were just so many instances like that where in the big situations, their defense stepped up big. And there's a lot of guys contributing, but Saturday night in particular, I want to point out Jarrell Casey, who has been a perennial Pro Bowl player for this team for 9 years. And not everybody knows who he is, but he had 2 sacks in that game, including a strip sack. It was his moment to get the national spotlight, and he had a huge game.
Impressive stuff there by that defense. Now, let's go back to Derrick Henry a second. 30 carries, 195 yards against the Ravens. Have you seen anything from Kansas City that makes you think they can stop it?
Well, Baltimore was a top 5 run defense. New England was a top 5 run defense. Kansas City is much better defensively than they've been before. They gave up, I think, 188 to Henry a few weeks ago in Nashville. I think my point is it doesn't matter who is in front of Derrick Henry at this point. He is a force of nature who is just blowing through everything in his path. I mean, the amount of best evers, first time evers in the NFL are staggering. He is the first player in NFL history to rush for 180 yards or more in 3 consecutive games. Jack, you've probably been covering this game for a long time like me. I never thought those numbers were humanly possible, especially against top 5 defenses.
Right.
But he is physically doing whatever he wants, and it is stunning to watch.
Look forward to seeing him again this week. All right, the last wild card team to win the Super Bowl, Green Bay in 2010. Only 6 wild cards have won the Super Bowl. Can the Titans become the 7th? Are you believing that right now?
Well, why not? I mean, they're 1 of 4. So somebody just asked me before I came in here, said, what are the Titans' chances? I said 25%. They're 1 of 4. I mean, look, let me lay it out for you here. They had to beat the AFC South champion to get in. They had to go to the AFC East champion to win in round 1. And then they had to go to the AFC North champion and the overall #1 seed to win in round 2. So they're just trying to finish off the 4th conference champion, that's all, or division champion. They're just going to make their way around, do the grand tour. East, west, south, north. You know, just rip them all off. The point is that if they can do it, it would be one of the most difficult paths to a Super Bowl title that a team has ever won.
The NFC Championship game pits the Packers and the 49ers. That's a 6:40 start on Fox, and they'll play that one at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. Let's bring in Mark Carpenter, our 49ers correspondent. Mark, finish my sentence. If defense wins championships, then the 49ers...
Then the 49ers are in line to win a championship because they have the best defense left right now in football. What we saw Saturday against the Vikings in the divisional round was just incredible. We saw a San Francisco defense that reminded us of just how dominant they can be. We saw a defense that looked like how they were in the first 8 games of the year and before they started that second half of the season that was so brutal for them, completely shutting down anything and everything the Vikings wanted to do, all right? The big talk going into that matchup was, well, you know, you have to shut down Dalvin Cook. You can't let Kirk Cousins get into play action. All of that was a non-factor, and we saw a 49ers unit that looked so refreshed, took full advantage of the bye week, getting healthier at this time of the year. And, you know, we see so many big injuries happening in football year in and year out, and this is a 49ers unit that is getting healthier. They got Quan Alexander back. You saw much of a difference he was making. Dee Ford out in that rotation of pass rushers. The 49ers' ability to constantly rotate all these different guys with their pass rush and also have a solid secondary, it really is remarkable, and the 49ers look like a complete team, and they look like the most dangerous team left right now.
Yeah, they sacked Kirk Cousins 6 times, all by defensive linemen. They picked him off once, but just as Lloyd Benson famously reminded Dan Quayle, he was no John F. Kennedy. Cousins, while having a great year, is no Aaron Rodgers. How does San Francisco handle Rodgers in this Packer attack this weekend?
Well, that's going to be fascinating. And, you know, the initial inclination is to just think back what we saw November 24th when the 49ers hosted the Packers on Sunday Night Football. That game was kind of seen as like, all right, this is the first show-me test for San Francisco. When they delivered, all right, rolled the Packers by nearly 30 points, forced Aaron Rodgers into one of the worst outings of his career. But in his opening remarks this week, as soon as the matchup was set, Kyle Shanahan said, you know what? I'm going to tell my team to forget about what happened in that game, all right? Because in the NFL, he has seen so many instances where, okay, if something happens in one game, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be translating to the next. And Aaron Rodgers is the key difference maker for the Green Bay Packers. Everything runs through him. Yeah, we talk about how Green Bay now has a running game. Yeah, they have a solid defense. But still, number 12 is the guy that dictates how that team is going to be moving the ball. And that's going to be key for the 49ers defense, all right? They know what kind of Hall of Fame talent he is. I mean, he's going to be the best quarterback that they see. I mean, this year, since they faced Russell Wilson, Drew Brees already, yeah, those guys are excellent. But, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, his caliber, and yes, he is no Kirk Cousins. If he gets into a rhythm, you saw how dangerous it can get. And I want to say something else about that November game is, you know, it just really seemed that it got away from the Packers so early. And, yeah, we could have saw more from Green Bay, but it almost felt as if Aaron Rodgers kind of checked out. As soon as it went wrong in the first quarter, it was all like, okay, let's try this again later. And, you know, since then, the Packers have looked like a completely different team. They haven't lost since then. The 49ers defense is keenly aware of that. If they can slow down Rodgers and not let him get into a rhythm, then they can establish the run and then really make Rodgers into some uncomfortable positions. The 49ers defense really has the edge in this game. However, you would not be surprised, right, if Rodgers turned into a Hall of Fame performance to get his team to the Super Bowl.
Mark, Jimmy Garoppolo's numbers weren't exactly eye-popping, but they didn't need to be. Is he a game manager this week, or will he have to be a playmaker against Green Bay?
I think what we saw against the Vikings is very indicative of how Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers have been all year long, where, you know, we're talking about this team's ability to win games in a variety of ways. It's not all on Jimmy Garoppolo, and, you know, the progression is to think like, oh, well, what kind of quarterback do they have here? Let's look at the quarterback matchups. Well, I look at the Tennessee Titans, who've already taken out the New England Patriots, who've already taken out the Baltimore Ravens. Ryan Tannehill has thrown for, what, just under 200 yards combined in both of those games. They're a team that's built through Derrick Henry. Whereas the case with the San Francisco 49ers, they have so many different ways that they can attack teams, all right? Is it going to be a Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman type game? Is it going to be a game where Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, makes a difference? Is it going to be a George Kittle game where he erupts for 150 yards, where it's not all on Garoppolo? Kyle Shanahan wants it that way. Kyle Shanahan is a master play caller. You never want to put anything all on one player. The times where Jimmy Garoppolo stepped up is when he needed to, you know, in some third down situations against Minnesota. Yeah, he had the interception, and, you know, the whole game manager, the whole classification, I just think that's a moot point when you're talking about the 49ers offense, because they just always seem to game plan and Tennessee exploit different inefficiencies. They never go into a game plan thinking like, okay, we need to see how much Garoppolo is going to be doing here. And that's not to say that he's going to be not going to be a difference maker against Green Bay, and they don't need him at all, because there are going to be times where they need him to make clutch throws. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get an attack here where it's like, okay, let's see how much we can establish the run. Garoppolo, you don't need to make too many big plays here, because this is a complete offensive attack.
Mark, you touched on it a little bit already for the first meeting this year. Any chance the 49ers are overconfident because of the way they whipped Green Bay in the regular season?
Well, Kyle Shanahan, when he was asked about that earlier this week, what would be your advice to the players thinking, you know, if they start to overlook Green Bay and start to get overconfident and thinking that it's always going to be that easy? And his response and his advice to that point is, don't be that stupid, all right? It's not like that. It's not always going to be like that. He brought up a story of how when he was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta, and a few years back when Carolina had its Super Bowl run, all right, they got trounced by the Panthers, hosted them in Atlanta 2 weeks later, and they beat them, gave them their only loss of the year. And also, I mean, I feel that the disrespect card is one of the most powerful things in sports. We see it all the time, right? I mean, we saw it with the Washington Nationals against the Houston Astros, all right? We saw it with the Clemson Tigers a few years back before they started being so dominant. We saw it with the Cleveland Cavaliers when they were down 3-1 against the Golden State Warriors, okay? The Green Bay Packers have the disrespect card on their side, and so you know the 49ers defense is not trying to give them any bulletin board material. So far, they're saying all the right things, all right? Not being too overconfident about what happened, okay? They realize how games can get away from a team. You know, it's the regular season. Weird circumstances happen, but it's an entirely different game in the playoffs, and they are respecting Green Bay as a team that is up there with them, championship worthy, and absolutely no overlooking Aaron Rodgers.
Let's take you to Green Bay now. Burke Griffin joins us. Burke, 37-8. That was the score when the Packers and 49ers met in the regular season. That's why this game is in San Francisco. Why will things be different this time around?
Well, I think a couple of factors. That one got out of hand in a hurry. Not only did Aaron Rodgers have his only fumble this year on that opening drive, he was sacked 5 times
which was the most this entire season. The Packers then, if you remember, had 3 3-and-outs in a row and then a turnover on downs. They were basically punched in the face before they ever even knew what hit them, and that game was over before it started. Now, Green Bay hasn't lost since, and they've definitely gotten better. Their offensive game plan tweaked a little bit, and you'll see definitely more consistency come Sunday.
Burke, I thought everybody in Wisconsin drank beer. Aaron Rodgers said he was going to have a scotch after they beat the Seahawks. Is that the secret to seemingly not aging?
Well, you know what? He doesn't do dairy anymore either, and we know cheese is a big thing right here in our state of Wisconsin. So I think it's his way of saying that he's a little bit more refined in how he entertains himself after the ballgame.
That 49ers defense really amped up the pressure on the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. Can this Green Bay offensive line keep the 49ers off Rodgers?
Yeah, you know, it really is, especially when he doesn't have to try and do it all. His numbers compared to last year are very similar, but Aaron Rodgers' throws seemed to be a little farther off the mark this year, possibly because of the new system that Matt LaFleur put in place. That said, I do. They've allowed only 11 sacks in the past 6 games, going all the way back to that last matchup in Santa Clara. Also, they've used their tight ends and running backs to chip premier pass rushers like Armstead, Bosa, and Buckner.
2 young coaches, LaFleur and Shanahan. They know each other well. Advantage who?
Look, at this point, I think you have to give it to Kyle, and not just based on earning the #1 seed or that previous victory. He's been around the NFL his entire life and in the league for the past 15 years. A decade and a half ago, Matt LaFleur was the backup quarterback for the Billings Outlaws in the IFL. He then went on to coach in college for 5 years, and the biggest factor really, though, is Kyle Shanahan. He's been an offensive coordinator calling the plays for a decade. LaFleur, he's only done it for 2.
What would it mean to the city of Green Bay to get back to the Super Bowl?
Well, it would mean a ton. Despite all the success here in Green Bay, all the way back to 1992 when Mike Holmgren and Ron Wolf turned things around, people still feel like at the back end of Brett Favre's career, it was wasted a bit with just that 1 Super Bowl win. And now Aaron Rodgers is in the same position and on the same career path, sort of, now that he's 36 years old. That window to bring home a Lombardi trophy is getting smaller every time training camp rolls around.
Is there a city in the NFL that has a stronger bond between its team and the fans?
I've been doing this for 24 years now, and I've been to every NFL city. The only one that felt similar to Lambeau from a fan and stadium perspective was Arrowhead in Kansas City. Now, the fans here, they bought stock, which is really just a $200 piece of paper, but the stadium has been sold out for decades, and the season ticket waiting list, well, that is well over 100,000 people long.
That'll do it for this week's Big Game Bound. We'll be back next week with a preview of Super Bowl 54. A big thanks to Ty Halleck, our correspondents Mark Carpenter, Burke Griffin, Corey Curtis, and Rob Collins. For our producer Spencer Wheelock and our crew in Grand Rapids, I'm Jack Doles. Thanks for being here. Enjoy the conference championship games, and we'll see you again next week with a big game preview at 1 o'clock Eastern Time.